Has he ever sight of goal? Not yet. But what he does! Makes his way out front and scores in the corner. Brilliant. From the back, makes his way out front.
How important is luck when trying to make it as a footballer?
To be honest, I think luck plays a big part. I think you know yourself, like being in the right space at the right time, being on the correct form. Bro, luck plays a huge part, and I've seen it time and time again about of like guys being in the right space at the right time and the right people are watching. And I've seen guys play for many years that they're brilliant, you know, and they just weren't in the right place at the right time. So like they never got the opportunities. So yeah, I think luck really plays a big part in this game.
And mentally, how did you deal with seeing other players that you are clearly better than get more opportunities than you got?
Yo, bro, I'm not gonna lie, Thursday, like, football played like a big part in my life, and like I wanted to do it for many years. Like, I was playing for over 10 years, you know, every day. Like, there wasn't a day that went by where I didn't see a soccer ball, and I wanted to do it full time. So, seeing guys that were, you know, making it and guys that I actually played with, you know, it kind of hurt, I'm not gonna lie. But even though I was happy for them, yeah, I'll say that it did kind of hurt.
And what type of player were you? And did you feel that your type of player was used incorrectly and underappreciated?
What kind of player was I? I would say I was a really hard-working player, you know. Even after training, I was in the gym, I was on the field, you know, I was doing everything that it took to make it to the top. There were times where, yeah, I do feel like I was underappreciated. I wouldn't necessarily say I was used incorrectly, but there were times where I feel like I was. I played at Chiefs development, and I think a better part of my playing there was underused. So
what were you, a left back or a left winger? Because I knew you as a left back, one of the best I've seen.
I did. That's the thing. Like I played left back for the better part of my career, if you can say that.
Mm-hmm.
But I enjoyed left wing so much when I was playing Vodacom for Alex United.
Mm-hmm.
I played left wing there for 2 seasons, so I really enjoyed it there. So I'd say that I was a left back, but I enjoyed left wing much more.
And growing up, we want to play for the best teams, and you ended up signing for Kaizer Chiefs at a development level. How did that deal come about, and how was that experience?
So this is the thing with football and life in general. They say if you want something, you must go and get it. So I was playing at Randburg, played with you for quite some time, and started talking to myself, you know, like, where do I want to be? And, you know, I wasn't too worried about the timing because I know guys that signed late, you know, late in their career, so I wasn't worried about the time and all that. But I had some chats with my family and friends, and they told me to just go for it, you know.
Yeah.
If you want something, just go for it. And I was constantly in a space where I was constantly looking for motivation every day, you know. So one day I just decided, nah, I'm gonna do this. And I made a decision on a Tuesday night that I'm gonna go to Chiefs. I'm just gonna go there. And I went there. I asked Arthur Zwane at the time if I could train with the team. He looked a bit hesitant first, but eventually I stayed there, and then eventually he said I could, it's cool. I can just train for the day. And I had a good training session because I put in good work rate, and they called me back the next day. And they were actually playing a friendly the next day, and I came on second half, and I had a good game, so they called me back again. The Friday they were playing another friendly, and so I played the full game that day, and the rest was...
And like you said, we played at Randburg together.
Yeah.
So what was different between the academy team at Randburg and Kaizer Chiefs?
Just the structure in general, like that is Kaizer Chiefs is a massive team. I'm not saying Randburg's not a massive team, but Kaizer Chiefs they come for years now. They're very professional, and just the training in general, the kit, everything you get, the treatment is just, I'd say, just the professionalism in general is on a whole new level.
Now I want to talk politics. What are some of the things you saw or experienced because of politics and favoritism in football, and how did you deal with it?
That's a touchy subject because I know how football is in this country, and I wouldn't say that I have experienced things, but I don't let those things get to me because I'm that player that just kept on working and waiting for my opportunity. But I've seen guys come in teams, and maybe one of the assistant coaches were family friends, and guys ended up going to Europe to play football. That's how quickly things can happen. And I'm not gonna lie, in today's football age, if you wanna call it that, it's about who you know. I'm sure you can agree with me too. And I think that goes for everything in life. Like these days, it's about who you know. Yes, it's about talent, but also about who you know. And I think the right people can take you places. So, yeah.
Yeah, and you played in the second and third division of the country's football structures. So you didn't quite make it to the first leagues. You played in those leagues, and what are the realities of those leagues in terms of finances and playing wise? How was your experience in the second and third division?
Bro, second and third division is extremely tough. I'm sure guys who have played there can agree with me. Especially second division, it's like a dogfight in that league. Especially with limited funding there's a lot of politics. I enjoyed it. It was tough, and I like tough. I like challenging. So I enjoyed it a lot, and I played 2 seasons in the second division. And what else can I say? Yeah, I think that's it.
And what do you think SAFA, the South African Football Association, and the Players Union can do about players who fall out of the system in terms of placements and stuff like that?
To be honest, bro, in my opinion, I think there's so many players that fall out, like yourself, like there's thousands, hundreds of thousands of talented boys in this country, and I think it would be near impossible for SAFA to do anything with everyone. But I think if they can, I don't know if they're doing something now, but I think if they can get some sort of a learning structure, even like in the second division or third division, because there's limited money there, some sort of learning structures for the guys, because I know some guys that I played with, they push like till late, like 28, 29, and they're still trying to sign a contract. So finding yourself at that age, still trying to push for a contract in this country, you can shoot yourself in the foot by doing that. So at least if there's some sort of skill set you can come out with while you're playing, I think that can somewhat benefit you when you're done and you don't make it, at that age, with limited money as well, because there's not much money you can save in those leagues, if I can say so.
Now that everything is settled, what would you say was your reason for not fully making it to the top?
I still ask myself this question to this day, even though like I left 2 years ago. I stopped playing 2 years ago, but I still constantly ask myself like, what was the reason? And I think I've been thinking about things so much, over and over, and replaying scenarios in my head of what could have happened, or if I had stayed. But I think it was in my heart, I think the final decision to leave was entirely on me, obviously, and a few other key factors played its part in my decision. But I actually don't want to go into those key factors that played its part.
It's okay. It happens. Yeah, it's okay.
It's quite personal, but that was it. Like I decided to stop looking at the way the football is in this country.
Yeah.
I'm not blaming that for the reason I stopped, but some things, we just need to talk to ourselves sometimes. True. And make decisions on our own, no matter. Because I thought, like I said, I've been doing it for over 10 years. And when you've been doing something for that long, the dream has always been there, and you're confident at heart that you're gonna make it. So to this day, still plays on my mind, and I think it's still going to play on my mind for the longest time. But
who in your environment helped you or who helps you recover every day?
I'd have to say family. My dad passed away 12 years ago. He was my everything. Like when it came to football, he was taking me to the pitch, like on my off days and when I was still younger, and he was helping me keep the dream alive. So when he passed, like I still had that drive and that ambition, and my uncle was he kind of took my dad's place with pushing me. He used to leave work early every day to take me to training at Chiefs for the longest time. So I'll forever be grateful for that. And I'd say my family, they sat me down and they told me that it's okay. And my grand says she'd still like to see me play, which I might do, just for fun.
Yeah.
But
I'm also still trying to get to playing for fun. It's a bit hard, but it's okay. Growing up in South Africa, we know that there's not that many Indians that play the game. Can you explain your experiences as an Indian footballer, both locally and internationally?
Oh, that's a tough one. For me, it wasn't about race or anything. It was just about making it, and pushing through the stereotypes was one of the most difficult things, especially here in South Africa. I'd say more, especially here, because obviously it's more about what you got, on your feet and with the ball. South Africa is a little bit more difficult. I can honestly say that from personal experience. I've seen blatant coaches, just choose based on race. So, it's been tough for me, but I never let that get in the way of me pursuing my career.
Yeah, so you actually ended up playing professional, and what are the difficulties attached with being a professional footballer?
Sacrifices. I've made some huge sacrifices, especially with my studies as well. I've had to put that on hold several times. Personal life, social life. So juggling those has been difficult for me.
All right, and we grew up in an era, so people born in like 92, 3, 4, 5, 6, and there was a lot of footballers like yourself. But for some reason, there are very few that made it to the very top. Can you say why that era just didn't succeed, like the guys of Benny, Stephen Pienaar, and them guys? Why didn't we really get to the top?
For me personally, I feel like we were the last generation. People just overlooked us because those players were in their prime of their careers during those years. So they tend to focus more on them and less on us. And we had to also prove ourselves probably 10 times more than them, Not to say that we didn't have the opportunities, yes we did, but I feel like the focus was more on them and less on us, and we just had to, push through it. And there are still some of us that have made it. Obviously, not everybody's that fortunate, and it's a little bit of a luck element together with the hard work that does pay off in the end.
All right. And you played overseas and locally. What is your opinion on the state of football in South Africa, as well as the coaching levels?
That's a funny question because for me, the answer is always the same. It's, overseas, it's born and you're born and bred in football. Here it's kids only start playing from when they're 12. So they've missed that whole phase of development, and we've only now started taking development seriously, and also I think the coaches, their egos get in the way of development. It's all about winning for them, and it's not about developing the players. Whereas in overseas, in England and in Spain where I played, they focus a lot on development because that's the future. As a future not only for that specific club but for the country as a whole. And they need to continually develop and nurture players to fill the roles and likes of top world-class defenders like Ramos and
Marcelo and them people.
Exactly. So,
yeah. So you played in Malta and Spain. How did you land up playing in Malta, and how was that experience? You played Premier League in Malta.
Yeah. So firstly, I started off playing in the first division in Malta for Goodyear United. I had an agent that knew somebody there. He had a good relationship with the teams there. So he took me over when I was 16. I had a child there. Obviously, I couldn't sign. I was still at school. So once I finished school, then I made the move over there. Spent half a season in the first division and then moved to the Premier League. It was tough, especially leaving home at such a young age.
17, 18.
And I tried to adapt myself to the situation and made the most out of it.
Yeah. And you then signed with a team in Spain. We all saw it on social media. We were proud. We were excited. How was that experience, just signing for a well-known team in Spain?
Surreal. It was, it was a dream come true. Obviously, it was a big team. It was big shoes to fill. Things didn't plan out the way I wanted it to. But, it was a good experience for me, not only as a footballer, but as a person in general. It gave me that independence, especially being so far away from home for so long. But yeah, it was good rubbing shoulders with the likes of Sorikaba, who now plays for the national Equatorial Guinea team in Denmark. So, it gave me a lot of exposure in that sense, and I made the most of it, enjoyed myself, and put my skills to the test.
So, we always want to go play in Europe and whatever, and you managed to do that. So can you tell us the truths and the realities of actually being a foreigner in Europe?
Well, the times that we live in now, it's a lot easier than it was back then. We have social media and stuff like that, to interact with people back home. But I think, there's a lot of myths about playing overseas. For me personally, I think it would be better for a player to make it here first, make a name for yourself here, and then move overseas. You get a lot more You get a lot more out of your footballing career if you make it your first, and exposure in general. You know, many people just want to go straight to Europe. Yeah, it's good. You know, I'd recommend that, but not everybody has it that way. You know, so I'd say make it here first, make a name for yourself here, and then take it overseas, and then the world is your oyster after that.
So then you return home. You ended up playing for Kaizer Chiefs in the reserve league. How did it feel like representing a big team like that?
It's a lot of pressure, especially although it was a reserve team, you always got guys from the first team coming to train with you, playing with you. It's a lot of pressure, but if you don't put yourself under those circumstances, you'll never know. And for me, it was a really good experience. Obviously, I don't want to get into the politics of things, but it was a real good experience, and something that I'd recommend for anybody to even give it a try.
Yeah, and can you tell me something like why didn't you make it to the first team?
As I said, the politics of things. But also I think from personal experience, I wasn't focused enough in that tunnel vision to get to the first team. I've also then had my son while I was playing with him, so it was a bit of distractions on either end of the scale. But I think also the development in South Africa, they're not really pushing it in the forefront, and the development, the kids in the development have to push extra hard. When the talent is there, the coaches can see it, but they're not really giving them that exposure on that level.
I see. So talk to me about lies, deceit, and backstabbing in football.
I think it happens in every industry. In football, I think it's more put in the spotlight, especially because of you're always in the media, etc. But I think the lies and the backstabbing is part of the game. It's how you handle it and how you turn it into a success at the end of the day.
I see. So you haven't yet played first team, and you last played in the first team a couple of years ago. So are you still pursuing a professional career?
So yeah, I am pursuing. I've given myself 1 more year.
Locally, internationally?
Both, but first locally, for the reason that now I have a son. So it's a bit of a inconvenience if I have to go overseas. But yeah, I am still pursuing it, giving myself 1 more year to see if I can break into any first team or make it pro again.
And what's the biggest lesson you've learned from football that you'll take with you forever?
Probably be confident in myself. You need that in life, especially in the cruel world we live in today. You have to have confidence in yourself, otherwise no one's going to have confidence in you.
All right. And what would you say was the reason for you not fully making it to the top, to the top? 100 caps for your national team, endorsement deals left, right, and centre. What was the full reason? What is the reason behind you not making it?
For me, it'd probably be distractions, and I'm not being fully focused. We live in a world where there's social media, there's keeping up with the Joneses. So I think all of those played a role, especially in my career. I've always wanted to make it to the top, but I've had distractions, a few ups and downs. But it's never too late to pursue anything, and you might make it and get endorsement deals on other things. So for me, distractions would probably be the biggest thing.
So then would you say that you've forgiven yourself for allowing distractions to kind of mess up with your career?
Oh yeah, 100%. I've never held any regrets in my life. Everything is done for a reason. So I'll have to take it one day as it comes and then see from there.
Yeah, and you mentioned that you have a son, and congrats about that. What has he shown you as a man, as a human being?
For me, it's been a life-changing, obviously, experience. He's shown me a lot of things, opened my eyes to the world. First thing he showed me is you gotta believe in yourself. You gotta do and work as hard as you can, because there's always someone looking up to you, and always someone counting on you, whether you're a father or not. And I think for me it's been an experience. I know there's been a lot of other factors that have played a role, but for me it's been, it's just about working as hard as I can and being the role model, not just for him, but for other kids also watching and other family members also, counting and relying on you.
Yeah, nice. So you played at the Stars of Africa Academy, one of the best academies in South Africa. How was that foundation?
Look, Stars of Africa Football Academy, the coaches that work there, the staff, the players that come out of there, should be a testament to how good the work is there. Coach Farouk and his team are remarkable in developing young players, identifying talent, and honing that talent into something special.
I see. So the academy managed to send a lot of players overseas, including you. You went to Sweden. How was that experience?
Going to Sweden or going anywhere, going to Europe, going to a big club is, it's very special. Especially if you work very hard and you put lots of hours into what you do. So going to Europe for me was a big achievement. Things there happened the way they did, but it was really good.
So then what is the difference between European or Swedish football and South African football, and why didn't it really work out for you in Europe?
The difference between, I'd say, Swedish football per se, not the whole of Europe, but Swedish football is more direct. There's a lot of tall players, versus South Africa where there's much shorter players, where it's shorter passes, tiki-taka style, flair, that sort of thing. Look, when I went to Sweden, I wasn't really given an answer or, any advice or any critique to say, this is why you can't stay or this is what's happening. I just went and came back, and that was it.
You then joined Tuks, University of Pretoria, in a very difficult league. How did you manage against other players in that league who were looking for a place in the PSL?
The National First Division in South Africa is a very physical, and tough league. You have to be strong physically and mentally. And my time at Tuks was really good. I learned a lot. I worked with Coach Sean Bartlett there, and a few other players like Enrico Boetas, Davies Nkausu, Clifford Ngobeni, Shane Bochenpol. So I played with people who had a lot of experience in the PSL as well as the NFT. So for me, that was a really good learning curve in my career, to spend so much time with such players that have achieved so much locally and abroad. So
you mentioned the legend Sean Bartlett. Yeah. Being a forward yourself, how was that experience working under him and with him?
It was unbelievable. I mean, the man's a legend in South African football. He's an icon for a lot of young players, and me coming up at the time, perhaps he was already, past his stage in Europe, and I didn't get to see him much, but seeing him in training at his age, wow, I can only imagine. We learned so much. Personally, I learned so much as a forward in terms of movement, striking a ball, placing a ball at a certain angle, timing. We learned so much from him. I learned so much from him.
So footballers born around our time, 95, 96, were filled with so much talent. We played with and against so many talented guys. Why do you think so few of us reached legend status?
Look, this time in football, I don't know if there was a change from previous generations to our generation, and I can say there's been a lot of players that have made it, but not as many during our time, and I can't put hammer to the head, but maybe it's a lack of opportunities, maybe there's some sort of discrimination with big clubs, who knows? I mean, I think fair to say some of the players born in that era or want to strive in that era may have put in 10,000 hours more than other players that have already made it, and I can't say that's just the game. That's why we love it.
On the topic of our football system, what can SAFA and the Players Union do for the many players who fall out of the system and don't sign pro contracts?
I think we have to broaden the system or the structure. It cannot only be the big clubs, Orlando Pirates, Chiefs, Sundowns, Bidvest, that have some sort of structure, where you have smaller academies like South Africa or someone else that maybe don't even have a professional team. But I remember a time when I was younger, the structures were a bit different. You could play for school and you would go to districts. From districts there would be a regionals, and then it carried on like that up until national level, and that's how we were selected, which made things a bit easier. And then the systems changed, and yeah, I don't know. So I think from a grassroots level we need to really widen the scope more, maybe perhaps bring in that old system again, to give more players opportunities. But yeah, I think the development in South Africa, or the style of development, needs to change.
See, mentally, how tough is it to be a footballer? How do you deal with the pressure, self-doubt, coaches leaving you out and not giving you game time?
Self-doubt. I think as a professional footballer or individual, there will always be pressure. You will have to, give results every single time. And as a footballer, you have to deal with it. For me personally, I had a very strong support structure, a good family. The people that I surround myself with, they've always been supportive of me and want the best for me. So when I feel like I am not giving my best, I have those people to push me and just bring me up to par again.
I see. You're one of the few footballers who actually have a degree. How did you manage to combine studies and a career? And what's the importance of education whilst pursuing a professional football career?
So yes, I do have a BCom in logistics management. It was really tough. I mean, pursuing a professional soccer career, that starts a long time ago. It started when I was 5 years old. That's what I wanted to be. That's all I knew. As we get older and go through life, an education is vital in today's society, I think. And also, I think the education helped me develop as a player, to become a more intellectual person, to deal with situations and pressure a bit better. So using that side of things helped me. Completing a degree full-time while pursuing a professional soccer career wasn't easy. There were times where I would have to go for trials for months. I would have to deregister from varsity, come back, do special exams, all sorts of things. And you have to make sacrifices for what you want, and that's what I did. And hopefully it pays off.
What would you say was or is the reason you never fully made it to the top?
One thing that's kept me out of football for a really long time has been injuries. When I came back from Sweden, I got injured. I ruptured a tendons in my ankle, which saw me left out of football for about 7 months. And then I got injured again. I ruptured my Achilles tendon after I played for Tuks. So that was another year. And just now, as I fully recovered and I'm ready to go again, we are in a 2020 pandemic. So crazy stuff happened, and that's just the journey until now.
And you were 25 this year, and outside you told me that you're gonna give yourself another shot.
Yeah.
How are you planning on going on about this?
Look, for now, given the circumstances, the only thing I can do is focus on what I'm doing every single day. My mind being, physically ready. So that's what I'm doing, training constantly. And hopefully when the countries open up again, we'll see what happens.
I saw somewhere where you said there's no room in South Africa for footballers who think independently. You will find yourself on the outside very quickly. What does that mean, and what was your personal experience with South African football at all levels?
That's a good question. The reason I tweeted that, who I was speaking to was actually the sister of Tefu Mashamaite.
Yeah.
And me and I have been honest for a long time about South African football and the limitations there are when it comes to being yourself. I think it's tough because in South Africa there's almost like this
there's like this paternal thing, you know. So if you're a footballer, you're automatically seen as a child. Does it make sense?
Yeah.
And the coaching and the coaching staff and the rest of the staff are all these elderly people or elders that are going to guide you. But there's also this side where they restrict you in how you think and how you feel. I mean, when I was at Kaiser Chiefs, you try and be yourself, you know. And sometimes they're like, listen, actually, we don't like that. Put that away. You have to be this way. You have to be this way. And you have to. But I mean, it's almost to the point where you start to feel like a child again. And for the duration of my Chiefs contract, I actually felt like a little boy, to be honest. So that's why I said that. I mean, if I ever wanted to make, not even, I don't want to say a political statement, but even just a statement regarding ongoings at the club, you know, it's looked at as disrespect, when maybe you're just trying to be honest. And I mean, footballers are coming from all different places, different perspectives and stuff. So I think it's not good well, maybe that's just my experience, but I don't think it's good to restrict that kind of thing, you know.
You played in an era where there were many, many talented players born between 1992 and 1996. What happened to that lovely, talented generation? And what are the reasons that not a lot of them made it to the top? When I say the top, I mean over 50 caps for the national team, endorsement deals, you know what I mean? Why? Because I'm born in 96, you're 92.
Yeah.
What happened with us? Why didn't we fully make it to the top?
Okay, first, South African football is very young. And when we're finally turning 17, or 16, 17, 18, coming into that stage where you make the transition from academy football or junior football to senior football and professional football, I think we were afforded more opportunity, that group specifically. So what you had was this huge influx of just guys ready to play football, ready to be footballers, because infrastructure now existed for me and for you know what I'm saying? So it just created this, like, almost this bubble, you know, where, not a bubble, but I mean, like a bottleneck, almost, you know. There's 10,000 of us, but only like 400 of you are going to make it, unfortunately. I mean, that's just the way it works. So, I mean, it's pretty simple, I guess.
Whew.
Not if you're experiencing, it's not somebody if you're experiencing. It feels like the hardest thing to accept. I know.
Definitely, I know too. Although some had okay careers, but there isn't really household names from that era, what do you think SAFA and the Players Union can do to help players that fall through the system in terms of education, job placement, and money handling?
That is so important. So I turned 19, I signed for Kaiser Chiefs, and I get there. And so you get to see the senior team, and then you get to see the development, the reserve team. And
were you on a pro contract?
Yes, I was, a 3.5 year pro contract. I get to Kaiser Chiefs, and I see these footballers that are they're almost on their way out. But it's a bunch of reserve guys who are 22, 23, 24. What is their next move? They don't know. And I mean, for Chiefs Chiefs don't do it, Chiefs, Pirates, Sunhouse, all these clubs throughout the world, they do this thing. Where it's like, okay, you're here since age 13, when you turn 18 or 19 or 20, okay, I'm done with you now. I'm sorry you didn't gain anything from this, but good luck out there. And that's not fair. I don't think that's fair. To take 6, 7, 8 years of someone's life, and then after that say, listen, I don't want to be with you, I don't want to do this anymore. I've gained, you haven't gained, and that's not fair. So what I think is important for the Players Union and even football teams in general and SAFA, they need to set up, I don't want to say a fund, I mean that's cliche, set up a fund, give them money, you know, but they need to set up a system where those guys can maybe get into coaching, maybe get into just in the world of football. They need to stay within football. I mean, they've already dedicated 8 years. I mean, if you go to school and you study law for 7 years, you want to be a lawyer. You don't want to go and do whatever else. So you've dedicated 8, 9, 10 years of your life to this thing. So you obviously want to be part of this system. Mm-hmm. It's really shitty when they throw you to the wayside. I mean, it sucks. Mm-hmm. So what I think they need to develop is a place, or at least something that can give guys a place in football, any kind of place. I mean, whether it be refereeing, football, just something, you know.
I like your passion. So now your journey is very different to the people on the rest of the panel, and like everyone, you played, but actually you won a competition that changed your life. Please open up on that whole experience with Nike, the chance, and everything about it. Spain, the finals, the endorsement deal, everything about it.
Okay, let me just tell you. So everything in football really happened for me like at light speed. I started playing at 17 for a small team in Johannesburg, Sporting Johannesburg. They're in Telfontein. I mean, they play amateur football throughout their ranks. I just started playing there and I was like, okay, you know what, this is pretty fun. I love football and this is what I want to do. So I started playing and I spent 2 years there. I then go to university where my passion for football really starts to pick up. You know, I mean, I had a really great coach there named Karabo, who I think is running football at UJ now. And he tells the whole team, tells me and the whole team, listen, there's this thing coming up. It's happening in Soweto. It's at the Nike facility there, and it's going to be massive. Just go give it a try. You're young, I'm young at the time, and you know how it feels. I mean, we're all there and we're like, listen, this is massive. You win this, your whole life changes, you know. And I really wanted my life to change at that time. So I researched as much as I could about this thing, and I was like, I think this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to win this thing, you know. I mean, obviously it sounds like, in hindsight, I can say I planned on winning it. I didn't think I would, but I wanted to. I didn't go there just to take part, you know. When I participate to win, to be fair. And I go there, and for some reason, I am just bawling out of control, you know. I was fire, you know. And I mean, there's all these great coaches there. I mean, South African legends, coaches, you know, just like watching us. And then after every small-sided game, they're coming to me and they're like, listen, you're pretty decent, you know, you're pretty decent. And I'm like, okay, this is going well. And at the end of that first Nike trial, I don't get selected. So I'm like, oh God, okay. My whole life, for me at that moment, is like, my whole life's over. I'm in like super depression at this time. This is like 2 months. 2 months pass, and Nike's like, listen, we're giving you a second chance. We're having it bigger this time. It's going to be 100,000 kids trialing. It's going to be, you know, this is going to be the real deal now. So I'm like, okay, now it's time to buckle up. You know, I need to get ready for this. So I go to Soweto. It's like 7 in the morning. I register, and that day goes well also, and it just goes really well. At the end of it, they select me to go to the final camp, which takes place at Melrose Arch. They have 45 of us from around the country, and it's 45 really good footballers. I must say, Fortune Makaringe was part of that 45, Lorenzo Godinho, you know, really good players that have done well.
Charlie or something.
Charlie Rasta, yes, he went to go play in Congo for, but he actually runs an academy now. But I mean, there was a nice caliber of play, you know, they were good. And it lasted 1 week, the South African trial, and I played so well. And in the final at FNB Stadium, I scored, I assisted, you know, so I stepped up a bit, where I think a lot of the guys froze, you know. You freeze in those situations sometimes, you know, and that's natural, but I just did well that day, you know, and I stepped up. You know, so I win the South African chance with Rasta and Melusi Zulu, and we travel to Spain. And before we travel to Spain, actually, we get to go to 4 South African clubs. We get to train with them, which was great. I mean, we were at Tuks, we were at Fits, we were at Sundowns, we were at Chiefs. And that was my first time seeing professional football, and I'm like, what is this? You know what I'm saying? It's people understate how nice it is to be professional football in South Africa. They think it's this like kind of okay thing. It's really nice. It's really nice, I must say. And you get treated really well, especially when you come from clubs where there was none of this. So you see this, and I was like, this is what I want to do. So I did well there. We then leave for Spain, and that's when my mind starts to do the wrong things. I start to make the wrong choices based on things outside of football. But those choices were affecting football. So before I get to Spain, I decide I don't want to play anywhere else except South Africa. I want to sign for Kaizer Chiefs. I decided this before I leave for Spain, which I think was a mistake. I get to Spain already saying to myself, no matter what happens here, you go home, you're gonna play for Kaizer Chiefs. And I did myself. I was a burden almost for myself. You know what I'm saying? That decision making in that time, I still don't understand. I don't understand till now. It was just it lowered the way I played. Because I mean, I said to myself, whatever happens here doesn't matter. And it did matter. It mattered so much. Had I performed the way I performed in South Africa, maybe me and you wouldn't be sitting here now. Maybe I'd be this massive player in Europe, you know. I don't know. It could go that way, and it couldn't. But I didn't give myself that chance to know. And it was tough. But Nike itself, I mean, they did so much for me. I got back here and Nike really looked after me. They made sure I got a nice contract at Chiefs. They made sure I got a beautiful endorsement deal, 7-year long sneaker deal, 7-year long boot deal. You know what I'm saying? I had everything from them. There was never a time where I was like upset at Nike. I must say they looked after me well. They handled me well. It's only towards the end of 2016 where I felt like they abandoned me a little bit because I couldn't find a team. Yeah. But that experience was amazing, I must say.
Yeah. And just when you think everything was going well and stuff, the Nike deal and stuff, you ended up signing for Kaizer Chiefs, and you did talk about it a bit. But another dream was that you were training and getting paid, being a professional footballer. How was it at Chiefs?
Okay, so let me tell you a story actually. So before Chiefs, I'm playing for Wits University and I get selected to play for the university national team. We get invited to the SAFA Under-21 Championships. And in 2012 it was in Nelspruit. So I'm part of this university national team and we go there, and on the first day they say, A School says watching. I think at the time Shakes Mashaba was watching, I think when he was still alive obviously, RIP. There was a few scouts there, a few big scouts, and I remember a few of the players around me, because these weren't they were from UJ, they were from NWU, they were from all over the show, and I remember them always talking about Kaizer Chiefs and saying, that's the place to be, the village. They always used to just make jokes about the village, that's the place to be, And I must say, I think it stuck with me, because when that opportunity came, I was like, I need to go see what this is about. And when I got there, I was blown away. There is no setup in South Africa quite like that one. I must say, it's a high standard. It's what every professional footballer dreams of. That is the kind of facility you want to be playing football in. That is the kind of coaching you want. That is the kind of mentoring you want. That is the kind of place you want to be when you play football. It's honestly like, in South Africa, I can say it's a mecca. It's the mecca of football, I say. Everyone else aspires to be like that. I mean, and I don't think you can just get that thing with money. There's a professionalism and a standard that people like Bobby, and I mean all them dongs, they have a really high standard. They're really professional. I mean, obviously you hear the rumors about politics and professionalism, but overall they look after that brand. You know what I'm saying? And you feel that when you get there, you're like, listen, I'm part of something very serious here. I'll take this serious, and that's exactly how it is.
So playing for Chiefs brings a lot of attention, and a lot of people would have loved to be in your position. So there was a lot of hate and doubt, and some didn't even rate you. So mentally, how was that? Because you're already not playing as much for Chiefs. So how did you deal mentally with the hate and the comments on Twitter and stuff?
So I actually spoke to someone recently about this. I dealt with that by retaliating almost. You know what I'm saying? I saw. So it's like,
someone says something.
Oh, that's what you get then, And I regret being that way, to be honest. I really regret being that way. I mean, I shouldn't have even acknowledged. I shouldn't have acknowledged it, to be fair. I shouldn't have acknowledged the hate. I shouldn't have acknowledged the criticism, especially from people who were not able to do what I was doing at the time, who were not in my shoes, who didn't understand the situation. It was a lot of this and that, and he's lucky, and it's this, and it's just like, okay, I understand how you guys feel about the situation, but understand that being in the situation is tough. And accepting all that hate from you guys is tough. While playing for this club, where I'm not playing a lot, where I thought I'd be playing a lot, where I thought I'd become this big star. So I didn't deal well with it at all. I mean, it really tore me apart. I used to search my name so often just to see what people were saying. And what people were saying sometimes was not good, and it affected me badly. Like, really badly. It was hard to deal with, I must say.
Yeah. And then eventually you get loaned out to a team in Cape Town. It was short, it didn't work out. There was an incident that maybe shook your life. But then you come back to Chiefs, and eventually your contract runs out. Like you said, your career was lightning speed. Boom, Nike, this, Chiefs, that comes to an end. You go to England, you try and make it work, it doesn't work, you come back. How does it feel?
My mother, she used to want to send me to like a Sangoma, to rid all this bad energy from me. She used to think I was just like the most unlucky person on planet Earth. Obviously, she's in that experience, so she thinks I'm the most unlucky person. I mean, everybody's dealing with their own situations where they feel that way. But it's tough to keep going when you don't get anything, you know. I must say in Cape Town, what I did feel from the players there, it's a respect I never had at Chiefs. I mean, at Chiefs you were playing with all these big stars, and I think they even forget you're there sometimes, you know, because they've got a lot going on. I mean, their lives are really light speed. That's like, it's hard to deal with, you know. I don't think people understand that either. But I go to Cape Town and the players around me say, we think you're a good player. And that's big. You know how that feels. When your teammates are like, I rate this guy, you're like, okay, I belong here and this is where I feel comfortable. And I felt really comfortable there. My problem there was me and the coach actually didn't get along, to be fair. I shouldn't have. I was very vocal as a young man. Very vocal.
I remember.
I know one thing. That, like I said, if you've committed 10 years to something, that is what you want to do. And I've already committed more than 10 years to the sport. And I will continue to push for some kind of success within this realm, you know, not as a player. I know I'm getting, time catches up, you know, but I will, and I know that I will get somewhere in the sport that I love. I guarantee that. And that is what keeps me going. That's what kept me going to England. That's what kept me going to Portugal. That's why I went to Limpopo when I came back from England. It just, I have to keep pushing, you know. Yeah.
I love that mentality.
I mean, you know how football is.
Yeah, definitely. Have you made peace with how your career went?
Some nights yes, some nights no. Some nights I don't understand how anything is the way it is currently. And then some nights I'm like, this is how it's gone and that's just the way it is, you know?
Steve. And what's the biggest lesson you learned from your journey?
I actually thought about this on the way here. I think it's so important that you find out who you are before you embark on this, on the football journey, on any journey in fact. I think if you decide you want to be a journalist, if you decide you want to be a dentist or whatever, you need to come to reality with yourself, you know what I'm saying, and say, I know who I am, I know what affects me, I know what doesn't affect me, I know what I shouldn't let affect me. Do you know what I'm saying? And I didn't do that before I started playing professional football because it did happen so quick. And I just took on all this, like the hate and the expectation, and it weighed me down, and I couldn't persevere through that at the time. And I think the lesson, or maybe the lesson I would teach younger players, or my son, or just anybody in general is, you know, just come to peace with yourself and don't expect too much. I wish I didn't expect so much of myself, and I just had fun, you know.
Mm-hmm.
There were months that went by at Kaizer Chiefs, at Vasco, at any club I played at where I hated it, you know. Why? That was a waste of time. And now I'm sitting regretting all those moments, you know what I'm saying? It's just such a waste of time. So, firstly, don't be an angry soul, you know what I'm saying? You need to definitely talk about things that bother you and get those things out of the way so that you can focus on this one thing that requires 100% focus. I promise you, professional football it's not a side job, it's not a now and again thing. It requires 100% of you. So if you don't have 100% to give, you're not going to get 100% out. I promise you won't.
Yeah.
It doesn't work like that.
What type of player were you?
I think that was the most frustrating thing for a lot of my coaches. I'm a very versatile player. I've always told people the funny thing is the only two positions I didn't play in the professional league was centre back and goalkeeper. Other than that, literally at the highest level, I've played left back, left wing, right wing, centre mid, like as a CDM, as an attacking mid, and as a striker. So I've always been very versatile. I use both my feet, so that helped a lot. But I always felt and always seen myself as an attacking player. But it always depended on the coach I played for, so I was used in a lot of different positions.
I see. And unlike the panel here, you actually played professional football the way we all wanted to have played. I wanted to know, how did it feel like waking up every morning knowing that you were a professional footballer?
I've always been very appreciative of it, and that's why it's something I'm really blessed to be able to say that I got paid to do what I love. It was never in doubt for me. I don't think I ever questioned whether I would make it. I almost had no option but to actually make it. I honor God and I say I thank God for the ability He gave me, and I think the ability He gave me, and I try to use it to His glory, to His honor. But with the coaches I played for, I think I was always gonna make it. It was always just a question of how good I was gonna be once I got there, and I probably fell short in how good I should have been. But it was an absolute pleasure and absolute joy to wake up every day and say, hey, I'm gonna go and kick a ball. So I never really worked a day in my life to this point. I can't say that I actually worked a day in my life.
Yeah, that's amazing. Would you consider yourself an underrated player?
It's a tough one, yeah. I wouldn't say underrated.
Or underappreciated?
No, an underachieved player. I don't think I played anywhere near the ability I have, and I think that's why most of my coaches were so frustrated with me. My coaches were never frustrated that I didn't work hard enough or whatever. I always worked hard. I was always one of the harder working players in the team, but I never had the self-belief, I think. I never really believed in how good I could have been.
Where did that stem from? Because you're playing professional football, surely you should believe.
Growing up, the confidence, it's something, as from a young age. When they say the game is 90% mental, I'm probably the perfect advocate for that, because I never really believed in myself the way I should have. Other people believed in my ability more than I did, and that was the biggest problem. So there were players who had lesser ability than I did, who achieved more, purely because they believed in themselves more. Every club I played for, I know that I was one of the best players at the team, but it never really came through on the field. And the funny thing is, and it's sad to say it now, but it's something I've had to look back and reflect on. You get players who are training players, and then you get match players. Now I was very much a training player, unfortunately, because what I did on the training field never translated on match day. And that, like I said, was probably the biggest frustration of every coach I've played for.
So you spent your entire career in the PSL, the National League in South Africa, the first division. How was that experience, and what was the state of the football then, and what is the state of the football now?
I still believe, personally, the average South African footballer is better than any footballer in the world, globally. And you can include Brazil, you can include anyone. Natural God-given ability, I think South Africa is better than any country out there. But unfortunately, I don't think we've been able to get to a point where we harness that talent and that ability to get to the top levels and to get our players to be able to play at the top levels. I think we have just too much talent in this country, and that's why even development is not a big deal, because players are almost ready-made products coming off the street. They have the ability to just go into the professional league, and that's why there hasn't really been a great investment in development, purely because players have been coming through without development. So it's almost like, what's the need when it's been working without development? And that's the biggest problem. But the thing is, the game has advanced and the game has evolved to an extent that you need the proper systems in place for players to be at a certain level when they get through to the professional ranks. And that's where the rest of the world has left us behind, unfortunately. I don't think much has changed in the game when I was playing to today, and that's the sad reality. That's the sad part, because a lot should have changed. Our players should have been at a higher level in terms of their training, in terms of the way they conduct themselves, even as professionals. Because even today, professional footballers don't quite look after themselves the way your average professional does anywhere else in the world. And I'm talking about training, your diet, the different factors that influence your performance. We're still far behind the rest of the world. And if we can, bridge that gap, we're going to be right up there with the best in the world. And that it translates when you see we don't really have enough players playing in the top leagues in the world.
That's true.
And so, why do we beat Egypt on one day with a Mo Salah who's one of the most revered players in world football, and then the next day we can't put up that same performance? So all those things, it factors in and it counts and it speaks to the development and the way football is I guess done in this country.
I see. And you had a career that ended at the age of 33, if I'm not mistaken.
32.
32. So it was a pretty long career, but you were not able to represent your country, not even once. Is that a regret? Is that a regret of yours? And why didn't it happen for Bafana?
So again, like I said earlier, purely a lot to do with the lack of self-belief and a lot to do with me playing within myself and beneath my ability. I did get called up. I don't know if you can consider it a cap, but I played in an African, what do you call it? The Chan.
Yeah.
The Chan qualifiers. So that's the only cap I have. So I have kind of made it into the Bafana B team, if you want to call it that.
Yeah.
So I was always there and thereabout, but I to a certain extent, I do feel like I got overlooked at some point. I look at the 2009 season. I was the highest scoring midfielder in the country. And I didn't get called up when they had just local based players. Before they called up the international players, they literally put a squad of 50 local based players together to prepare. And then they were going to cut that, obviously. The fact that I didn't make that squad I felt a bit aggrieved at that, because at that point in time, I was doing well. I mean, I was scoring goals, I was playing well, I was creating, and I felt I deserved to be in that squad. That's probably the only time where I felt really aggrieved that I didn't get a call up. But there were instances in my career where I felt I did enough and I warranted being, in the national team. But unfortunately, selected didn't feel that way.
Cool. We know about politics in football. Can you please speak on some of the things you have experienced as a footballer and as a coloured footballer in South Africa? Some of the politics you faced.
Unfortunately, it is a reality. It's one that people don't want to speak about. But if we're being honest, it does factor in. I believe that if I was possibly a black player, I may have even had a better look in at Bafana at the international level to play for the national team. To the point that I remember being interviewed by a certain publication locally, and the assumption was made that I'm Namibian. So I was doing well enough, and when the publication, I did the interview, and the guy was asking me questions about Namibia. I had Namibian teammates. I was at Swallows at the time, so Enrico Puentes, Mohamed Oseb, George Hummel. I was playing with all these guys. So I was kind of familiar with what, because we would chat and we were good friends. So it was a bit weird to me that he was asking me, but I was answering the questions purely, it was generic questions really, that anyone could really answer. But when the article actually came out, it said I was a full Namibian international. So I was good enough to play for Namibia, and it was just assumed that I was Namibian. I don't know how that came about or why, the journalist actually said that. And a lot of people actually, after that, thought I was Namibian, because I remember an article came out where I was interviewed and asked about Bafana, and I said, I do believe that I've earned a call, and I do believe that I'm worth a place, or at least a look in the national team. And some of the comments to that article, that fans was, they were saying, no, you must go to his country, you must whatever. And so the assumption was that I was Namibian, and I've never even been to Namibia. That's the crazy thing. And so I don't know if that actually played a factor, but again, was that assumption made because I was colored? Because I was playing with, all these guys that were from Namibia and we were close. And the funny thing is that Swallows, winning over the fans was the most difficult thing, because I came in, and when I got there, I had an ACL. I immediately, before I actually really signed, I tore my ACL and I had to have an op. So the first 6 months of my journey at Swallows, I didn't even kick a ball for the club. And when I did start playing, I remember my mother being in the stands, and the fans were just, having their way. Like, I remember one fan actually, my mom sitting in front of him and he's sitting behind, and he says, "Haskins, your massa," and he's swearing, like literally using expletives. And my mother turns around to him and says, "Hey, do you know who his mother is?" But that's the kind of things I had to go through. But the funny thing is, what it took for me to win over the fans, and purely because I was colored, I know that I had to do so much more than your average black player. And that was the thing. It's almost like I was taking someone else's place in the team, or it seemed like it was that, because now they were calling for certain players to play ahead of me, and for no reason other than I would believe my race and the fact that I had to prove myself. If I was gonna be there ahead of someone else who's probably a black player, I'd have to do so much more than them.
Yeah.
And that's the experience I had, and it's unfortunate, but it is a reality. And I know I'll probably get some flack for saying this, but it is a reality, and we don't say it enough.
Yes, that's true. That's why we're here. Yeah.
Even in the national team, nobody's willing to say it really, but I think it factors in, and it's played a role in the past. And so it's an unfortunate thing, but it is a reality within our football.
And we need to speak about it a lot more. So thank you for that. And your career progressed, and you then had a little stint in America with LA Galaxy, David Beckham's old team. How was that experience? And for future players, can you please elaborate on the terms and conditions of the deal that they made to you, and about African players getting bad deals overseas?
It wasn't so much a bad deal. Maybe I should just rectify, because a lot of people think I played for Galaxy. I didn't actually play. I just went on trial. My trial was just under 2 weeks. But they wanted to sign me. But the challenge was back then is that the American sports as a whole is governed by a salary cap. So it's not like in Europe where, well, the reason they have the cap is because they want to avoid the situation of teams becoming, monetary giants, where like a Chelsea, Man City, whatever the case, where they can just throw money at any player. So what happens in the US is they're governed by a cap. So when I went over there, it was pretty much mid-season. It was the end of our season. I remember we just won the Nedbank Cup with Swallows. I went over, trialed with them, played again in a friendly against a team from Costa Rica. It was really, an awesome experience. The level of professionalism, night and day. And I speak about because I went to college in the US as well. Straight out of high school, I went to the US, to Florida. I was playing for Florida Atlantic University. My college team was probably more professional than any PSL team I played for. But the Americans are just next level when it comes to professionalism. There's nothing as a player that you need or want. When it came to soccer boots, training kit, at that point in time when I started at Cosmos, we didn't even have training kits. You literally would come and you wear bibs. Everyone comes with their own kit and you're wearing bibs on the field. And I went to the US, and over there already we had training kits and the like, and for me that was something different. So it was an awesome experience at the Galaxy, but the problem was they were governed by the salary cap. So what they were offering was all they could offer. So even if they wanted to pay me more, they couldn't, because by then already they'd reached the cap. So the cap is 2.4 million. That's when I was there. It's changed now because the players went on strike. So it's 2.4 million for the entire squad for the year. So they had David Beckham and Landon Donovan. Already they count. So you get two designated players. They call them DPs, designated players. So they can get paid outside of the cap, but they count for 400,000 in the cap. So you got two players, that's already minus 800,000. So you're left with 1.6 million for the rest of the team. So, that's like 50,000 here, 200,000 there, whatever the case may be. The younger players were earning $20,000 US a year. And if you're an international, you're not going to go over there for that kind of money.
Of course.
So the big problem for me, even though, it would have been a dream move for me, realistically, I was 28 at the time. I had my wife, I had the kids. I couldn't stay for what they were offering. I was getting a lot better deals over here, a lot better offers. And even though it would have been a really great move, and I would have loved to have played, along with the likes of David Beckham, Landon Donovans, obviously Steven Gerrard came after. We saw Zlatan just last year. It would have been an awesome move, but realistically, financially, it just wouldn't work. And at that time, they didn't guarantee contracts. So even though they gave you a contract, they could cancel your contract within a month or a week if they weren't happy with you. They can just scrap your contract, and you couldn't do anything about it. And they didn't, my salary was excluding housing, excluding transport and all that kind of thing. So just financially, it didn't make any sense. So unfortunately, I had to pass on that one. And it's one of those things I look back and I'm like, should I? But just unfortunately at the time, it would never have worked.
Yeah. Let's talk finances quick. We often see that footballers can earn a lot of money and stuff. Okay, cool. How easy is it to get lost in the heat of it all, spending on everything all the time and stuff? How important is it to save?
Are we talking about South African footballers?
Talking about, because we see a lot of our players and
that's a
not
myth,
like
though.
you.
That's the myth that South African footballers earn a lot of money. We don't. That's the reality, and that's one thing people need to understand. When you look overseas, I did the calculation not long ago because I was doing a Facebook interview with someone. The average South African footballer doesn't come close to a 4th division player in England. So we're talking, you get the Premier League, you get the Championship, you get League One,
League Two.
and League Two. In League Two, they say the average player earns £1,400 a week.
It's £1,400 a week, yeah.
Pounds, and the exchange rate, let's round it off to 20. So that's 14,000 rand a week times 4. So that, now we're going, you understand? So the average player in South Africa I don't think the average is even at 30,000 rand yet.
Mm-hmm.
There's players in the league that, earn 5,000, whatever, less 10,000, whatever. That's the myth. Players, there are those select few that are earning really good money.
400,000.
But even those guys are only earning it in the latter part of their career because they still have to build themselves up. So in the early years, you're making money, but you're not making astronomical amounts.
Mm-hmm.
When you do start making that kind of money, how long does it last? If you're lucky, you get 5 years of earning really good money. And if you do save, how much are you really saving? Because anytime you earn more money, you wanna upgrade your life as well. You wanna upgrade your circumstances, and then there's the black tax that factors in.
Of course.
The thing is, I think our footballers need to have a change of mindset. We can't look at the players in Europe and try to
Emulate
them because we're nowhere near. When someone like Lionel Messi is earning 500,000
euros
a week, not a year. We don't even, in a footballer's lifetime, almost, we won't earn what he makes in a week. We're on 2 completely different stratospheres. And that's the thing. Sometimes our footballers want to live like the players in Europe, but we're not earning anywhere close to that. So I believe that no South African footballer can comfortably, if he's played solely in South Africa, if you've not gone to Europe, I don't think there's a single South African footballer who can retire off of what is made in South Africa, playing in South Africa. I don't think there's one. And at 35, now you have to start a new career. There's only 16 teams in the PSL, 16 in the NFD. So that's 32 coaches. How many players can be coaches? To coach at junior level in this country is not very lucrative. Whereas our European counterparts, that's actually where you want to be. Coaching at development level is a big, big deal, and they get paid a good salary to coach at that level. In this country, if you're coaching at junior level, it's way below what you would require to sustain your lifestyle. So it's a fallacy when you say South African footballers earn a lot of money. I believe that's something that we need to look at, and it's a myth. It's really a myth. South African footballers do not earn a lot of money. I did the calculation. I played for 12 years. I was blessed. I was lucky enough to play for 12 years in the PSL at the highest level of football in the country. My average salary for the first 8 years of my career was 12,500 rand. People literally, that look you have on your face, exactly. My average salary for the first 8 years of my 12-year career was 12,500 rand. Is that money?
No.
Exactly. And I'm a professional footballer, playing at the highest level. I didn't play at NFD and at the highest level of football in the country. 12,500 rand. Maybe that's my fault. Maybe I didn't endeavor enough. I don't know what I could have done to maybe improve that, but that is my reality. And that's the reality of so many other footballers, because Sundowns, Chiefs, Pirates, well, obviously SuperSport, Bidvest was one of them. They're no longer there. Those are the teams that really were paying good salaries. That's 5 out of 16. So the 11, no disrespect to them, they probably can't manage to pay the kind of salaries that these others can, but what are all those other players? So that's the majority of the league are probably worse off than I was. because I played for Cosmos, Swallows, Wits, Supersport. I mean, those are some of the better teams in the country to play for. And that was my reality. So you can just imagine some of the players who play for lesser teams, so-called lesser teams, what's their reality?
Surprisingly enough, I'm a photographer and a videographer now. I do work a full-time job in IT.
That's good.
Which I never thought I'd see myself, because after school I did study,
At least you studied.
I studied sports conditioning, and then I worked for some time, and then I studied IT, so I'm in the IT field now, and I'm running my own company.
That's good.
On the side, so yeah, that's where I'm at now.
I am still completing my law degree, and I am working at a law firm currently, so trying to juggle everything together and make it on both sides.
So I've been blessed post my career that I've had opportunities that people have had to work for their in their lifetime. I was co-presenter of a morning breakfast show. I didn't think I could, but that's the grace of God again. Managed to do that. Now I'm doing work as a football analyst for SABC.
Do you have any regrets?
No regrets in my life.
No.
Yes.
No.
No.
Who gave you the best advice in your career?
My mother and a boy by the name of Buran Juma.
My mom, I guess.
My uncle.
My dad.
Best player you've played with?
Let's on young.
Kagiso Dengue.
I'd say Luther Singh.
Pule XD.
Luther Singh.
The toughest opponent you faced?
Tinashe Nengomash.
Luther Singh.
Porto.
Clifford Ngobeni.
A centre back that knocked you out in the
Let me
game.
tell you, so we were playing this reserve game in Apples once, and Evan France was playing for Supersport,
Yeah.
and it was like playing against a brick wall, I must say.
Best coach you've worked under?
Farouk Khan.
The Artazwane.
Coach Farouk Khan.
Ace Kuse was a genius, Stu Baxter was a genius, Karabo was a genius.
Cavanagh.
Worst coach you've ever worked with?
Charles Ngobeni. I can't get his name.
I know, and I forgot his surname, but
From
Fitz.
Fitz,
Yeah,
yes.
I know him. Yeah, Ioane. Charles Ioane.
Yes.
Yeah, he was tough.
Tony Almeida, the coach of Vasco da Gama.
I'm not gonna mention his name, but I'd have to say it was a coach in my Randburg days.
Best football memory?
In 2010, during the World Cup year, I was a ball boy for the Netherlands for the entire month. So I spent every single day with the players and the coaches. You can't buy that.
I was at Sporting, okay? And we're playing Orlando Pirates in the Development League, under 17. And the game was not going well, we're losing 2-0. And it's like 30 minutes left and I scored this hat-trick. And, I think that whole season, everybody spoke about it all the time. Even when I had seen those Pirates players again, they had spoken about that moment. And that's one of those moments that said to me, you can do this, you know what I'm saying?
Definitely winning back-to-back Nedbank Cups.
Going to Spain.
He was making the under-17 national team and signing in Spain for Alchef.
How would you rate your career out of 10 so far?
Because it's not over, I'll give it a 5.
6.
6.
Out of 10, I'd give it a 10, because I know what I've done in my career, and I know the mistakes and lessons I've learned. So, I'd give it a 10.
Out of 10 so far, give it like a 5. I don't think I've reached my full potential, so that's why.
Cool. I want to thank the guests for coming on and sharing their story. And I want to thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe. And I'm Rudy Samuel.